A new AI-driven operating logic for the global economy 2.0 is taking hold amidst the chaos that we are experiencing around the globe in what we have called globalization 1.0. People have, in large measure, become disenfranchised with how that globalization era has worked for them. But underneath the discontentment, underneath the fragmentation, underneath the geopolitics and the trade wars is a new era that is dawning that Malaysia can take advantage of. And that is the era of the cognitive economy. Let me tell you about the cognitive economy driven by artificial intelligence. Digitization is 2015 thinking. Cognification through artificial intelligence is 2025, 2030 thinking. We have benefited from the creation of a global digital backbone, the internet. It has created data, it has created compute power, on top of which we will now inject new cybernetics functions. Those cybernetics functions are essentially command and control, understanding the connections between different pillars in our societies. That is very exciting because it spans not just the digital world, no, it spans infrastructure, it spans ecology, it spans biology, and it spans psychology. With the help of this exciting new technology, artificial intelligence, we will be able to plan, to predict, to foresee, to take action in an optimized fashion if we get it right. And I am here today to tell you what it takes to get it right for Malaysia. Because the result of it all will be that we are going to be seeing a shift in power relationships in the global economy and in society. It is for Malaysia, it is for all of you to start harnessing that era and making sure that it works in your favor and to your benefit. We have created massive amounts of data over the last 25 years of the first wave of the internet. Some of these numbers you see behind me are startling. Every one of us generates 1.7 megabyte of data every second. We collectively in the internet generate 2.5 quintillion bytes every day. That is 18 zeros. Now you have to understand that every byte can contain up to 8 bits of information. So you do the math, massive amounts of data being generated every second, every day, amounting to something on the order of 180 zettabytes per year. But that is not the most surprising number. The most surprising number is, in fact, the number you see up top there that tells you that currently we really only understand about 0.5% of all data that is being generated. We have to bring new tools to this challenge to uncover this treasure trove of insight for all of us in a way that suits every single human being in this room. That is what artificial intelligence is about. But that is not where we're going to stop. We are going to generate even more insight into our biology, into our brain function, with brain-computer interfaces. And of course, that means that we are going to be fusing the 100 billion neurons in our heads, an insanely great number of neurons, to the 340 trillion IP addresses that IPv6 enables. We get a chance to get new insight that is groundbreaking into things like Alzheimer's and depression, into blindness and certain types of paraplegia, not to mention things like productivity and the ability to retain greater amounts of insight and information through better memory functions. All of those things will come to our benefit as a society. And of course, as you can imagine, this also poses tremendous challenges for us. We have to shape this development to make sure that we are not objectifying the human being, but that we are putting the human being in the center, that we make sure the human being has a better, richer life. For me, as a business professor, that is a paramount imperative. Business is here to make life better for the billions of people around the world. It is not here for the singular purpose to make money. That comes with success. But in the foreground, we need to do right by humanity. And Malaysia is at this cusp where it has that choice, and I have seen great evidence during my days here that it will harness that choice in a thoughtful manner. Now, not all is positive in this new world, brave new world of massive amounts of data. Because as you can see, data does deteriorate with time. If we want to harness the $6 trillion of potential we're currently forecasting, which, if you ask me, is a conservative number, then we have to act fast. We have to use artificial intelligence to make sense of the data before it deteriorates, before it gets corrupted by too much lingering and too much manipulation. So speed in this new era of artificial intelligence-induced cognitive economy is imperative, and that is why the innovators around the world are driving toward what I have called a great cognitive leap of artificial intelligence. We are now going from the early handcrafted knowledge expert systems with set content and set rules to neural networks that can learn by themselves and make decisions and take actions, to this new era of contextualized adaptation and task execution, and possibly even the action that results from all of this. This is the era that we're just on the cusp of, and you all need to be enlisted to help us shape this tremendous development. I want to give you some examples of the kinds of visions that are to be had if we are successful. And that is going to be the image on the left of every slide I'm going to show you. On the right, I'm going to show you what the early precursors are, and those are reasons for why we should believe that the greater vision is possible. It is 2028. The future of manufacturing has arrived, and you are part of it. Let's just say there is a factory around here in Kuala Lumpur that is making a product. Let's take a look at that blue box, and let's just assume that in that blue box there is a light, a lamp like the ones we have overhead right here. It is being made in a factory. And now it has this blue semantic space around it, which is essentially a digital way of describing how the product was made, what the cost structure is, how bright the lamp is supposed to burn, when it is supposed to be displaced, who has quality checked it, and what the time to market needs to be. This is tremendous potential, of course, for anybody managing a product run or managing a factory right here in Malaysia. But that's not where it stops. This lamp is now equipped with new sensors that are incredibly cheap. Some of them are cheaper than one grain of rice. We can put those sensors into lamps right overhead. And by the way, that is already starting to be done today. With those sensors, we can sense who you are in the room. What is your identity? Are you tired or are you energized? Are you sick or are you healthy? Are you paying attention or are you bored? And I certainly hope it's the former. That is tremendously valuable if we want to figure out who you are, whether what I'm doing here is valuable for you and interesting, whether it enriches you. And we can figure out what the relationships are between you in this room. Then we can figure out where you go when you leave this room, because you may be going into another hall and we want to know what you do there. And then you go outside and you catch a bus or a taxi or a scooter, or maybe you walk. My condolences in that heat. We want to know this because we want to manage the capacity of this building, we want to manage security, we want to manage traffic flow. You can tell tremendous potential to make life better. And at the same time, of course, again, we are shaping the way we are tying the human brain and our social relationships to the digital infrastructure, to the AI. That is the imperative of the day. Is that science fiction? I don't think so, because on the right hand, you are seeing a precursor today. That precursor is a German manufacturing company, machine manufacturing company called Trumpf. Trumpf has partnered with Klöckner, a steel maker, with Munich Re, an insurance company, and with Relayer, an AI and data science company, in order to offer machines as a service. Rather than selling machines to automakers or consumer product makers, they will put machines into factories and you pay per part. We can already take data streams from the internet on market developments, on market price development, on how many people are buying these cars, what their preferences are, on what the automakers are doing with new forthcoming designs, and mesh it all and calibrate the machines in a way that they can be switched and retooled with agility. We are one step away from putting the human into this, and that is already in part being done. When you switch on Amazon Alexa today, in theory, it has the ability to tell you whether you are tired or awake, because it can correlate billions of data points from other people and your own language in the morning when you speak to it over the years to tell you what those conclusions are. That is, of course, promising and scary. I will come back around to that. The next one is now the future in 2029, and it's the future of consumer services. As we understand who you are, how you move, what your life patterns are, how you work, how you're productive, how you relate to other people, we of course need to make sure that your privacy, your agency, your security is guaranteed, because otherwise we will have a trust backlash. In the future of 2029, you will have a personal, conditional data access agent. Now that's a mouthful. We have dubbed it the bouncer bot. This bouncer bot is a personal agent that will allow you to understand who is tracking you, whom you are encountering in the digital realm, or even physically as you move and people get close to you. That can already be done today. Then you decide, based on your privacy charter, which the bot has and evolves as life events happen, you can let the bot know what kind of tracking, what kind of relationships you want to accept, on what terms, and what kind of data in your data footprint you want to keep out of bounds and private. Then you flow that data which you want to give away into a vast data market of the $6 trillion that I mentioned. And part of the proceeds of that data footprint will flow back to you. There is no reason, ladies and gentlemen, that only the big hyperscaler platforms around the world should make money with your data. It's your data footprint. You should own it, and you should get a fair share of the revenues that are achieved with it. Now, you think that's science fiction? Of course not. Apple has agreed and Apple has acknowledged that this is where things are going, more individual control over data footprints. And of course, we have ad blockers and cookie blockers, etc. But they don't do the trick, because we want the relationships with the digital actors. We want to engage. I'm an entrepreneur. I am data-driven. I need data. But we need to flip the deal that we have with the large digital service providers into a deal that is more fair, more agency assuring than the one we have currently. Now it is 2030, and we're looking at the future of financial transactions. Now we have bots that are starting to acquire cryptocurrency wallets. They can start to search for each other, rate each other, transact with each other, in a bot market. They can work with each other to put together chains of activity. Imagine you wake up in the morning and we have managed to solve the very difficult traffic that you encounter here in Kuala Lumpur. At the same time, In Penang, we have bots that are retooling semiconductor fabs and responding to new resource needs and new demand profiles automatically. Third, in Selangor, we are looking at profiling patients based on their DNA information and their medical history for eligibility for new medical trials or for organ or blood donations. All of this is coming together to help us execute complex, wickedly complex challenges that we, ladies and gentlemen, cannot handle on our own with current tools. Is this science fiction? Well, not quite. We are starting to do this with companies like Rabbit Tech. We are able to understand symbol neuromorphic patterns in humans and mimic those with new task-driven bots. That is happening today. Now it's 2031, and we're looking at the future of entertainment. You are sitting very much like this in a movie theater with many people around you, a VR headset on you, a haptic feedback suit around you, and you are enjoying the latest movie release. As the movie progresses, the suit can understand how you physically and emotionally react to the movie and pair you with a movie character. As the movie then rolls on, you slip into the role of the character and you play one out of 3,000 versions of that movie right here in this room. But as the credits roll, you are not stopping there. You are taking the game home and you are giving permission, if you so choose, for the AI to understand who you are, how you act, based on video and text-based information from the internet. All of that being privacy assured and on an opt-in basis. You are stepping into what some might call the Matrix. Is that science fiction? Maybe. And maybe it's not 2031, maybe it's 2035, but we are doing things today, such as Sandbox Augmented Reality, the company that is already putting 47 interactive VR stores into the United States. We are already starting to look at pairing that with generative AI tools that can take text to 3D images or text to video. So are we there? No, of course we aren't. It will take you to help us get there, but the precursors for this future are there, so let us shape it. Are we going to stop there? Of course not. Humanity has never stopped, and it never will. Humans are tool builders. Humans look for frontiers. We will not stop. We will keep experimenting. So as we experiment with large action models like the ones that I've shown you just now, we are also contextualizing them in order to gather data from collectibles around the infrastructure around us. So we get more contextual data for a perfect weaving of contextual, infrastructural, ecological data into our task bots. Next, we are going to cluster different types of artificial intelligence, whether those are Gen AI or whether those are new forms of heuristic learning that will manage different realms of our lives. The next frontier is integrating human symbolic manipulation, something that we're starting to do today. Only a human can learn by interpreting signals and symbols around us. But that will change soon. And as we progress with all of this, we will start embodying artificial intelligence into robots. We will give them sensors so their skin can feel things. They can hear, they can see, they can smell, and they can feel. That will give them more memory and a more lifelike existence. And to boot, we are going to go after a whole different species in terms of intelligence, and that is children. Because children learn very differently from grown-ups. And we have, unfortunately, put them into a corner thinking their brains are lesser developed than the grown-up brains. But the reality is really they learn differently, more playfully, more easily. We need to study them much more than we ever have. Those, ladies and gentlemen, are the next few horizons. Now, as you hear me narrate, Some of you will see the tremendous potential in all of this for humanity and for your economy right here in Malaysia. And others will, of course, see risk. They will see the threat. They will feel uncomfortable. And I applaud you for that. You have to see the vision and you have to be uncomfortable. Because at the end of the day, we have to be trustworthy. And in the era of AI, if we want to innovate and harness those growth horizons, we have to heed the trust equation. And that means that what's above the line here, credibility, reliability, transparency, accountability, responsibility, needs to be greater than our self-orientation as innovators. The moment that ratio gets too small, meaning that self-orientation in terms of profit motive overtakes what's on top of the line, people will start trusting us, stop trusting us. Why is that important? Because only if we have trust can we develop intimacy with our customers. If a customer doesn't trust us, they will not let us get closer. And if we can't get closer, we can't get data. And if we can't get data, we can't get insights. And then we cannot provide new solutions that make life better. And we, ladies and gentlemen, should be incentivized to do this really well. Because trust is provably profitable. You see this in the statistics here. Leaders that are trustworthy in the digital realm are 1.6 times more likely to have 10% growth or higher. 53% of consumers are willing to choose services and products based on trustworthiness. 46% are willing to switch between services that are more trustful. And 2% higher likelihood that digital trust leaders successfully avoid digital risk in terms of lawsuits and heavy-handed regulation. So trust we must. Then the question is, well, how? Well, we need governance. Obviously, we need regulation. But we need to go beyond regulation, not wait for regulation. We as innovators have a responsibility to the human being, to the society around us. We must not destroy it. We must make it better. So number one, C-level executives and the board need to be educated on artificial intelligence. What can it do and what are the risks? We need to hold them responsible for sustainably responsible and ethical management of AI trials and experiments. Number two, we need to do societal system impact testing. The stakeholders for a certain product go beyond the direct customer. Are we respecting communities or are we objectifying them? Because that would yield societal instability. Number three, we need to make sure that we have AI model audits to make sure the models work correctly, they haven't been corrupted, they pursue a socially sustainable target function. And number four, and last but not least, we have to make sure that the data we collect is logged, that we know who is collecting, from whom, why, when, and how, who is manipulating the data, and where is it now. All of this together is what we call governance beyond compliance. And this is our responsibility as innovators and policymakers. What are some of the risks you might add that this man is talking about? Well, let me give you an equally specific idea of the risks as I have of the visions and opportunities. When we innovate on AI, we have both the promise and the tyranny of scale. That means we're scaling risk as well. Risk number one is manipulation. Risk number two is safety and weaponization. And risk number three is unemployment. Right here in this graphic, you're seeing in the lower left-hand corner your digital data footprint. As we collect data from you and flow it into the AI in the middle, there are 4 layers in which emergent properties and flaws and risks and mistakes can happen. Number one, in the data collection in order to get the data pool ready for training. Number two is training itself, because as we train a model, all kinds of emergent properties and phenomena can surface. Number three, then, is the foundation model in action, and that will propagate through many, myriads, thousands of use cases around the world with one single push of the button. And finally, in this bot economy that I have shown you, we are now promulgating all of those emergent properties, unintended consequences around the world, deeply into the different corners of our personal lives. Now, finally, when those insights get to the human being in the upper right-hand corner, that human being will get the insights and add their own biases and their own fallacies to the perception and the taking in of those insights. So as we harness the potential, we have to heed these risks. That is the imperative of the day. We have to mitigate the tracking and the privacy infractions giving people agency. We have to make sure that we don't corrupt biases, that we have impartiality in our legal systems, in our schools, in our real estate systems. And we have to make sure that we don't tolerate deep fakes, because deep fakes can do very major damage. Today, we can manipulate tiny bits of text that you speak or write to tweak the message ever so slightly and manipulate not you, but the other side, the audience to which the words are spoken. Maybe the worst of them all in the near term is mis- and disinformation. This year is the biggest year in human history in terms of political elections around the world. 64 countries around the world, amounting to 49% of the world's population, are going to the polls and voting. So if we manipulate the voting that's happening, we could see waves and waves of further disruption in our political systems and in our global geopolitical system. Nobody wants this, believe you me, and I'm sure that you will agree. Then, of course, there are self-driving cars. Today, the cars are not yet able to act like a human being when faced with an unrecognizable, heretofore never seen situation. We need to develop car AI systems so they can generalize those types of outlier events and act with common sense like human beings, lest we want cars en masse with robo-taxis plowing through population groups in public. Equally, we have to safeguard our infrastructure, because today we have more regulation in the United States, for instance, around windshield wipers than we do around water dams, massive amounts of water reservoirs that can be steered with generative AI and maintained with generative AI, or lead to be breaking with generative AI. That must not continue. Dams are more important than windshield wipers. Lastly, of course, autonomous weapons. We have already seen the use of autonomous weapons in the battlefield, and luckily, colleagues of mine are working with the United Nations to curb their use. So those are all risks that we have to mitigate. But maybe the one that is closest to your heart right now, especially to all the students that are with us today, welcome. You are the essence of my life. Your careers are what I live for, and I am hoping I can help you shape your careers in years to come. On the left-hand side, you will see where Malaysia places in terms of GDP and in terms of sophistication of its digital infrastructure. And you may be self-critical and feel that Malaysia is not where it needs to be, but in this chart here, it's actually operating in the upper right-hand quadrant, and that is usually the countries that are starting to be more advanced. Now, as the AI innovation revolution progresses, we will actually see more disruption in white-collar jobs than in blue-collar jobs. So that means you have to focus not just on STEM education, but you have to focus on the human being. You have to study philosophy, you have to study anthropology, you have to study psychology and sociology alongside computer science. If you manage to do that and get yourself into roles that are either human veneer or safe zone, to talk in words that my good friend Kai-Fu Lee used, then you will be safe with your careers. If you're in the lower hemisphere of this graphic on the right, then you have to start worrying. Now, we think if you calibrate your education well today, then you will have nothing to worry about. And that is why we're here to help you, because we want you to live fruitful lives. That means you have to get into a symbiosis with the artificial intelligence. What does that mean? Rely on your human strengths while integrating with the AI. You cannot compete with the AI. You cannot go head to head. You have to, in fact, play to your strengths. That means understand data science, understand AI, but please understand human beings. So what you see here, things like ideation, inspiration, love, empathy, all of those things you have to hone. We are not always intuitively good at those things. But the machine is even worse. It cannot compete with us there, and we should not compete with it on its turf, which is very fast processing. So as we look at the evolution of work, we have to get into the symbiosis. And I will leave you with this image of my good friend Patrick Wolf, who is a chess grandmaster who's played all of the global chess grandmasters of his time, said, "The time or the era in which we can beat an AI in chess or in the game Go is over once and for all. But we are looking at this the wrong way. We have to pair with a chess computer as a chess grandmaster and play against another pair, and then you play like gods in a whole different dimension. That's where you need to be with your productivity as well. Integrate, design your jobs such that you can play on that higher plane in a symbio-intelligence mode. That is our charter as educators to help you do that. So then, where does this stand? Where does this leave Malaysia? The future of AI made in Malaysia lies in you, the talent, at the foundation of the strategy for Malaysia when it comes to artificial intelligence. You need to exercise foresight like the foresight I have just demonstrated. You need to connect dots around the globe. You need to do right by Malaysia, but you need to have your feelers in Silicon Valley and Shenzhen and Stuttgart and everywhere in the world where AI is being innovated. You have to bring your talents to those pain points. Leverage who you are around the world. So I have given you some ideas right here about how you could do that. Current pain points are use case specific chip designs, custom batch manufacturing, resilient global logistics, synthetic data generation, and of course, regional AI localization. All of those things are not happening enough today, and this is where we need Malaysia to act. As we do, we have to assure human centricity, ethical use case design, and multi-stakeholder governance. Remember, put the human in the center, not the money. The money will follow. I will leave you with this image, which shows how a successful AI strategy is being composed. These are the pillars that you have to dive into in order to craft your strategy. And as you can tell, talent on the bottom of this graphic is foundational. There is nothing more important than talent. Talent includes, of course, an educated AI proficient population. But it is trickling up into every other pillar, whether you are talking about ethical data collection or about designing the right compute power or becoming investors or becoming entrepreneurs or being a government procurement agent or designing regulatory frameworks that keep AI fair, equitable, and sustainably reliable. Those are all human beings. Those are the roles that will shape our future together. And what better place to be in than UTM as a platform around which all of this can happen, because it is, by its very nature, human-centric.